Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. There are many cultures worldwide and throughout history that have valued age and wisdom. Yet, in the US today, ageism is prevalent. Too many modern Americans of a certain age who feel self-conscious about making a reference to an old TV show or a phenomenon from a while back often use the expression, "I'm dating myself." Disparaging our age can be toxic. We are all aging, and age can bring with it many gifts, especially if along the way we are accruing wisdom, learning more, and improving ourselves. While we can bemoan the realities of ageism, a better option is to do something. Paul Walborsky decided to take that option, and he created an enterprise that may benefit people of any age. Paul is a seasoned executive and founder whose CV includes SVP at the New York Times and CEO of multiple startups that have been acquired by giants like Meta. He is currently the co-founder and CEO of Open Water, an organization whose mission is to connect seasoned professionals with decades of experience and showcase their wisdom to the world. So listen in as Paul talks about aging, wisdom, and the strengths of these traits. Paul Walborsky, welcome to Super Psyched.
How are you, Adam?
I'm well. It's good to see you, man. And I'm so blown away by something you've done. Last year at this time, you and I were sitting in front of a pool and you were really pissed, to put it mildly. And you were upset about the state of affairs as it relates to ageism in this country, as well as this youth worship. And here you are, a man who's done all kinds of things with all kinds of people at very, very high levels. And you could have just complained and that would have been something, except for the fact that you didn't. You decided to do something. You did something bold. You decided to address this youth worshiping ageist society and say, I'm going to create Open Water. Can you share with the listener what Open Water is?
Yeah, it's really interesting that, and like I said to you earlier on when we were off air, I hope you didn't think I was an obsessive speaking about like my favorite rant at a time. When I see things like this and I find things that bother me, and then I start asking other people, hey, does it bother you too? Are you experiencing the same thing? It creates a pattern, right? So as an entrepreneur, and I've been an entrepreneur, I think, since like high school, you always look for patterns of things and you try to see if you can address it. So instead of crying about it, maybe I was crying about it at the pool party, but I was probably also testing people how they felt. But I sort of said, let's come up with a solution to this problem. So rather than go out to the world and say, poor me, I'm old, you don't want me, why don't I figure out a solution to the problem? So that's how Open Water came to be. I've mentioned to you, I had a company that I built called AI Reverie with a great co-founder, Dale Kim, who was probably 20 years my junior, actually. And actually, we built something together, and I've written a little blog post about a little bit of like that innovator and the editor of how together we work really well together. And that company got acquired by Meta. So after that, I'm like, oh my God, I'm like sitting at the top of the mountain. I'm great. Everybody's going to call me. People are going to be offering jobs. And what happened is that a lot of people were calling me. They wanted me to provide my wisdom to them. And they were saying, can you advise one of my young startups about something? And I was taking all these calls, but nobody was like willing to like say, hey, I want to pay you for that wisdom, which was weird. And when I asked for it, it was like a little bit difficult to ask for payment when you're doing this because people say, oh my, you're super successful, just give your wisdom away. And then I interviewed in a couple of venture firms. And my wife said, oh my God, you're going to get jobs from everybody. You're going to be a great venture capitalist. And I realized that a lot of them were like looking at me and said, you're 57 years old. we need someone who's younger to be a partner. So I felt that even with all the experience that I had, and I've had other companies that have been sold, that I was hitting this ceiling of like, okay, age is becoming an issue. And then I shared that with other people. And I basically said, great, are you having the same issue? And when you talk to people of your same age, they open up, right? They never want to talk about ageism. But when you talk about it and you bring it up, people say, yeah, I feel the same way. And a lot of those people are going through that transition. They're getting nervous. They still probably have to work. And they're saying, okay, something's happening. So that was a little bit of the kernel of the idea. And then we came up with Open Water. And I think your question was, what is Open Water? We are creating a community of highly accomplished professionals with decades of experience. And they are part of our platform. They go online. There's a community. They can interact with each other. There's a lot of workshops. There's content that we create for them. But also we have big networking events, live networking events. So people go out and meet each other in the real world, if you believe it or not, after COVID. Actually, our generation likes to meet in the real world. So they go to cocktail party salons. We have speakers come in and talk to them. And what that does is they network with each other. And what I find is that they find opportunities between members to members. And the bigger idea is that as we sort of curate this community of really accomplished professionals, we're starting to reach out to corporate America and say, hey, these professionals have a lot of value. You should tap into their wisdom. It can be intergenerational mentoring. It can be advice work, or it can even be full-time jobs. So it creates a platform for people to interact and find great curated talent that has a lot of wisdom. That's a super long way, Adam, of telling you what we do.
That's a beautiful answer. And I want to drill into something. You were born and raised in Mexico, where age is actually revered. And one of the things I know for sure is that the diversity model wins. If you want to have a great organization, you want it to be diverse. I was talking with Temple Grandin, one of the biggest spokespeople on autism. She herself is autistic, and HBO did a whole movie on her starring Claire Danes titled Temple Grandin. One of the things she said to me is, if you want to have a good team, you want neurodiversity as well. You want to have somebody like me, because if there had been somebody like me who was autistic and who had my visual strengths on the Columbia Space Shuttle program, it would not have exploded. I would have caught it. And so I'm thinking about you coming from Mexico, a place where age is not considered a bad thing. It's actually really considered a good thing, and there's a lot of respect. I'm imagining that it may have even been all the more of a catalyst for you being incensed by this phenomenon. And so I'm glad that you were pissed, because you've done something with that energy.
Yeah, so I was pissed, but in a good pissed way.
Yes.
So let's figure something out. But yeah, look, I'm from Mexico, born and raised in Mexico. My father was an American. He was a Polish Jew when he came to the US. My mother's from Venezuela. I was born in Mexico. My father was Jewish. My mother is Catholic. She converted to Judaism. So you cannot be more diverse within my little world than that. And I went to a high school. There was people from Mexico, where there were a lot of international students. And I always felt that that was really valuable. And as you mentioned, in Latin America, extended families are important. So you do interact with grandparents and fathers, and they are there. So you understand that, right? So you're part of it, and you understand that that's wisdom, and you respect them and you revere them. And I'm not saying that in the US you don't do that. You do that too. Mm-hmm. But I think it's more prevalent in Latin America. I also think part of my experience outside of that is I am in a world in technology that there's a lot of innovators, and we have created belief in Silicon Valley that youth is the only group that can innovate. Even if it's the only group that they can innovate, they still need wisdom to really fine tune their opportunities. And there's a great book called Super Founders by Ali Tamaset, who actually did some data and said that a lot of the most successful entrepreneurs who have the best exit are people who are 40 years plus, right? So it does show that experience matters, wisdom matters. So it's a little bit of that. But yes, coming from Mexico did give me another different perspective about diversity and the importance about diversity. And the funny thing about all of this, we talk about diversity at the board level, in a sense, in corporate America, that we want a diverse board. We want like a cabinet like Lincoln had, that everybody can speak up and he wants to hear everybody's points of view. But we don't like really think about it across the corporation. And we're getting better at that. But I think age is still not addressed.
100% agreed. And one of the things I just revel in as I speak with you, I've met you various times over the years. I've never seen you as an angry individual, a Larry David type who's looking for what's wrong and has his, this is what I'm pissed about this week. But what you did with that emotion was you leveraged the intelligence of that emotion, said, what does this mean and what should I do with it? Is there something I could do with it? And you hit it out of the park. I went to an open water meeting. I saw the people you brought on board, fascinating individuals, and everyone was interesting. And everyone had a story, and everyone was also interested. It didn't seem like it was a me, like listen to me type of situation. Yeah. It was more of a, hey, let's have a really nice, healthy exchange of a back and forth, at least with the sample size of the people with whom I spoke.
Yeah, no, but that actually happens in a lot of our events. And one is people are choosing to be there, right? They become members. They have to apply. They're nominated. There's a whole application process. So you are part of this community. So you treat it as a community. We also treat everybody that there's an onboarding. When people come to our community, we onboard, we tell them what's expected. So it's not only that they're taking, but they're giving. So it's all of that onboarding for people to say, you are coming to a community. You're not coming to a network. You're coming to a community. And that's what's really powerful. And then also people are in the same stage of their life. People ask, who is your ideal member? In reality, it's someone who's going through transition. And this age gives us this transition of like saying, I am now maybe 45, 50. Where do I go from here? And they're going through that same. So when they meet people, they're sharing something that's common. And also, age takes away the insecurities of life a little bit. You're sitting with peers who are already more secure or don't care about being that secure. So they just are there.
That's
so
awesome.
That's what I found.
So let's talk about ageism in general and what are the pitfalls of it. I'm thinking in terms of neurologically speaking, certainly younger people have much faster fluid intelligence. They have faster reflexes. They can answer word problems in math quicker. And yet older people have what's called crystallized intelligence, which means that they have stronger vocabularies. Perhaps after having so many journeys around the sun, they may have more cultivated wisdom. They don't necessarily have more cultivated wisdom. They may have just had journeys around the sun and been just kind of sitting there as a passenger. But for those of us who've been trying to get better each year and have engaged in what I like to think of as deliberate practice, they've tried to do better and their global knowledge may have increased. They may have also seen how things go over time. Some of the weaknesses of being younger are hubris, perhaps, and not having had quite as many hours to really know how things go over the long run. And of course, there are deficits when we are older. But let's just talk about what are the possible perils of a society that doesn't properly engage people who have been here longer.
There's a ton of perils, right? Because we've seen what happens. We have history and we've experienced it, right? So there's an interesting thing about experience and reading. So one, you can read what's right. Like you can say, okay, if I do this, this will happen. I can read. It's a lesson. But when you live an experience and it is part of your physical experience and it affects your brain and it changes like in your brain, your neurons and how they communicate because you had that experience, then it's something that it becomes ingrained in you. So when you see something that's happening, and that's why we have intuition, because it's already ingrained, we physically experience something. We were there. Like there's this thing I did about like the ice, that you hold the ice and you see how long you can hold ice. You know, you probably know the ice test. And that basically teaches you how do you deal with pain and how do you go through that process. And what that does is now you can say, I experienced space, I understood how I reacted, and now I know how to deal with it. So experience comes from that you were there, you saw it, you felt it, is now part of your vocabulary. And now you can actually guide younger innovators through that process. And you can say, hey, you're going down this path. You might want to think about different paths that you might take. Or have you thought of the outcome of that path? So I think experience does help people maybe not always hit a bullseye, but at least hit the target. And that's what we do is we help young people hit targets and not waste too much time trying to hit that target. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense. But, older people can help in so many different ways. I mean, we have a lot of wisdom, which is all that experience that we talked about.
Absolutely. I was thinking about a time I once saw an older doctor, and I just told him what was going on, and he just didn't even, it was so funny how quickly he was able to take seemingly disparate pieces of information and just put it all together and just render a really sophisticated answer. And I thought to myself, wow, that's amazing. And that is the benefit of turning a science into an art. He had done it so long, he had become kind of a Jedi in the field.
And I think we've seen it, right? It's sort of like that when we were kids. Remember those games that they give you like a bunch of different dots and you say, it's a giraffe, it's a dog. And there was like 3 points. So what wisdom allows you to do is look at the dots and create a pattern quicker in your head and have a better probability that that pattern is what you're expecting, right? Because you have that. You have all that data that's had been processed through experience, not figuring out that pattern. That's what wisdom is. It's that simple. And if you dismiss it, then you don't get the benefits of those patterns. You asked me about how we came up with open water because we've seen a lot of patterns. I've started my career in Wall Street, so I know about finance. I built a company in 1995 when the internet was just starting. So we understand protocols, we understand the stack, we understand communities, we understand social, and so on, right? So I already bring that to the table. So when I was mad in your pool house, a friend's house with a pool, I was able to put those patterns together and say, oh, this could work because I've seen it before, and this is how the puzzle works. And I was able to come up with a solution probably faster than other people could.
That's amazing. So we are at the initial stages of open water. What's your hope that it will become?
My hope is very simple. If I think about what is a success metric when we say we've succeeded, is when people say, this community is so important to me because it's my network of friends and also a network of people who can help me continue to excel in what I do. And I'm finding opportunities. So it's a place they say, hey, even if I lose my job, I can fall back into open water and I know that I'll be able to find something that will help me keep earning income or staying engaged and networking with people, because that's going to be the essential. So you feel a sense of belonging to this community that no matter what else happens in your professional lives, you feel I am secure here because I know the transition. An example for that is I have a lot of people who join this community and say, look, I was working for a big company for the last 20 years and I was focused. I wanted to do my great job and I did a great job. And then my other thing, I was taking care of my family and I was being a great dad. But then when they let me go, I had no network. So I felt like I was lost. And I'm this person with 20 years plus of experience. So imagine if we can create a community in which people can say, no matter what happens, I am secure because I know a group of people that we will help each other find an opportunity. And we are also a group talking to corporate America, and corporate America is leaning in, and I know they'll find us. So at the end, what we're doing is helping people be discovered, be seen, and be appreciated. It's like super core human needs, actually.
Super core human need. And one of the things that we have seen happen to the elderly is one of the things that may actually increase the rapidity of aging, becoming ill, and even dying is not feeling useful. And there are so many needs that are addressed through open water, and it may be an inspiration for others who want to do something like it in other ways. But what you've done is you're allowing people to feel useful by helping other people. You're helping people who need to be helped to feel useful again when they might feel like they're just kind of floundering. And it's interesting that you called it open water because it seems like, yes, many of us have had clocked enough hours of experience that we are in open water. The problem with being in open water also in this case is where's the boats to help me if I'm lost? And it seems that open water is not just open water, but it's also a fleet of ships that will pick you up in case you fall in.
Yeah, so there's many different layers to that name, right? So open water is also a place where when you're in sailing, you like to see open water because it's clear sailing, right? You want clear sailing. But you also know that in open water, it can become pretty treacherous suddenly. There can be a storm, right? And then how do you navigate the storm? And if you're navigating the storm, don't you want to have skippers who have great wisdom next to you, figuring out how to navigate that storm? So it has a lot of layers. Open water has a lot of layers, right? And if you actually look, and if anybody, when people are listening to the podcast, go see our logo, you also see this little square in the middle of the image. And that square, when you look at it, can be a square, but it can also, when you look at it more deeply, it can be a cube. So it also shows the different perspectives that humans bring to the table. Some people see cubes, some people see squares. So it's all the different perspectives of wisdom. So we've thought a lot about the name and the imagery behind the brand. So you'll see little rays come out of that little cube that you see. And there's 30 of them because it's basically, imagine there's like many different years and experiences that you've brought to the table. I mean, you got me going into that's the whole side. But yeah, I think brand and imagery of brand is very important to convey what the values of the company are.
Absolutely. And now that I imagine it, it does have face validity. It does really demonstrate what it's intending to mean. And that's so, so lovely. Is there any advice that you would want to give somebody as somebody who's been there and felt like, gosh, I'm being overlooked because of my freaking age? Like, what a myopic way to look at the totality of Paul Walborsky. What advice would you give somebody else who might be going through something similar to what you're going through?
There's 2 books I recommend people read, and which were very valuable for me. And a lot of people have read them, but just pick them up and read them because it gives you a framework of thinking about this transition. One is by Arthur Brooks called Strength to Strength. Mm-hmm. And the other one is by Chip Conley, Learning to Love Midlife.
Yes.
And those are 2 very important authors in the space of aging. And what they've done is that they've created the concept, and Chip has created this concept of midlife. Like we think about being an adolescent, there's this point called midlife. We're not like 90, but we still want to be productive. We want to impart our wisdom, and there's different needs and desires at that age. And they've created the language, right? And in a sense, if you think about the protocols of how we interact with this transition. So anybody who's going through this and is thinking about that, pick up those 2 books. I think they're really, really valuable. And it will give you a framework to think about you and yourself. And that they help me figure out where I am in my journey and becoming comfortable where I am in my journey. And so I would just say to people, do that. And be open. Talk to people about your journey. The nice thing about open water is that you come in and you are open about that journey. So the worst thing you can do is keep quiet and just get to be in the corner and not say, I'm against the fact I'm aging. Well, we're all aging. So you have to figure it out, understand where you are in that journey and how do you lean into the wisdom and are part of that.
It's so funny to hear you say that. I am a big fan of Brooks, and Chip Conley. I brought up with him when he was on my podcast, the idea of this expression that's used in common parlance, and I hate it. It's, oh, I'm dating myself. I've always hated that expression. And Chip said exactly what I've always said. Well, hey, at least you got a date. But I would like that actually just gone
Yeah.
from speech.
So funny that you say that. So I was at a conference called Transform last year, and I was presenting about what is open water. And my presentation started, I am Paul Walborsky. I am 58 years old. Because I said, I am not ashamed of my age. My age has given me gray hair, but a lot of wisdom and knowledge that I can lean on. So I'm proud of that. I think we need to start leaning into our age and saying, this is the age, and we should be comfortable with it.
I am Adam Dorsey, and I am 56 years old.
Exactly. That's how it should be. What's wrong with that? I've earned all my stripes at my age.
That's amazing. And you are just a living embodiment of a guy who's just engaged. I mean, I don't know every little step you've taken, but I know for sure you have engaged in deliberate practice the entire way. You've looked at yourself. You've asked yourself, what was good about what I did? What wasn't great? What about what I did? How could I do better next time? You're constantly hitting it and challenging yourself to bring out your best. And I believe that irrespective of your longitudinal chronological age, you are always going to be youthful. And by the way, that is not a compliment. That is merely a reflection. But before I close, is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet asked before my final question?
I mean, there's so many things that we could ask, actually. We can go on for hours, Adam. But, I think what you should ask is say, how do you become a member of Open Water? Go to our website, openwater.group, and apply. If you know someone in our community, ask them to be your referrer, because it does help. Because if somebody knows you, it's easier for us to go through the whole curation process. So I do think that people should lean in and be part of it. How do people just say, I am at this age, I am 58 and I'm super happy with it, and I want to lean into it and I'm proud of it. So we can ask a lot of other questions too, but I think we only have how many minutes? 30 minutes of this podcast?
Well, I'm keeping it nice and easy breezy. But one thing I would want to ask you, for those who think, wow, why so exclusive? I have an intuition, a hunch as to why it is that you want to vet people in this manner. But could you share what that's about?
So we are a professional community, and we are reaching out to corporate America to say that our professional community are people who have always wanted to achieve. They took their careers seriously. They have skills that can help them on the corporate America side. And we want to say we are doing the vetting for you of this great group. Honestly, part of my idea is that hopefully people look at our model and do it for many other types of communities. And they do that and they move forward on that. This is not just Paul Walborsky wants to take over the world. What Paul Walborsky and my co-founders, Anne and Seth and Chris, what we want to say, here is a potential model to solve ageism in the US. And hopefully it works. And then people say, yes, I like it. That's it.
That's fantastic. It's as if you read my mind. I'm just curious, what other groups might borrow from this template that you've created?
It can be doctors like you, people who are in that world, right? Who are also have a lot of wisdom. Tons of doctors who get to a certain age, they say, look, I don't want to be in full practice, but I want to be in part-time practice. I have a ton of wisdom. And how do I keep engaged with a group of similar people and so on? And there are groups like that, right? But how do you actually open up those communities to potential people who can keep paying you for that work?
Love it. So my final question for you, it's the magical question I ask all of my guests. If you had the magical powers to confer upon all humanity one insight or strength that would dramatically improve the life of the individual, as well as perhaps society at large, since we're all connected, what would that insight or strength be? And how do you imagine it would improve the life of the individual as well as society?
Don't take yourself too seriously. That's it. Because, it's an impermanent state that we're all in.
Love that. Well, Paul, I knew this was going to be awesome. I've been a fan of yours for years. So glad you're putting your intelligence and talent and network to use in this way. And hopefully others will follow suit in creating their own versions of open water. And those who are interested in joining open water will hit you up.
Yeah. And Adam, thank you for recognizing the work that we're doing and being supporting in that work. I appreciate it.
So glad to be a part of open water myself. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.